It has been more than 4 years now since I quit my job at my uncle's car repair shop in southeast Missouri, but what happened that year consistently refuses to leave my mind. Specifically, this would have been July of 2021, near the town I grew up in, a small town where the population never reached 1,000 people. In fact, I believe the most I ever saw the population at on the Welcome to the Town sign was 920. Like I said, small town. However, like many small towns, this town was old, and this town had a long history. Dating back to the end of the Civil War, the town, named Barnesville at the time, was home to a Confederate-held fort up until 1864 when Union troops, possibly led by the now infamous General Leaper of the region, burnt the entire fort and the town to the ground. Following the war, Barnesville was rebuilt, and its population quickly rose to nearly 5,000 people. But this wasn't the end of the horrendous history in this town, or even the beginning of it. No one knows when the Indians first inhabited the region, but the town had an Indian population that lived upon the hills surrounding the town. Towards the end of the 19th century, these tribes were dealt with by the government. Many of their camps were completely burnt down by the military, with remains of certain camps still in the forest and visible if you go hiking. Specifically, these campsites were on the tallest mountains in the region, which will tie into the rest of my story in a rather unfortunate way. At some point in the 1990s, my uncle, let's call him Jesse so I don't keep saying uncle, bought a piece of land just north of town within the Mark Twain National Park. Little did he know at the time, but he had bought the tallest peak for almost 35 miles in all directions. Jesse did this specifically so that the rusted and totaled vehicles could sit far from the highway at the bottom of the hill in order to not ruin the beautiful scenery of the Ozarks. While a smart move company-wise, that decision would come to haunt him until the present day, both figuratively and literally. He would consistently see flashing lights at the top of the hill, not like car lights, not like lampposts, but small flashing yellow lights looking between the cars, always coming in pairs, but they would always be at least 5 feet above the ground, no lower and rarely taller. Every night. As the years went on, he would place motion sensor cameras along the road, going up the hill and at the very top, to see if anything would be caught on camera. He would even stand at the bottom of the hill, watching the lights go on and off. But never once did the cameras trigger. These were sensitive cameras too. They were triggered by too much dust flying around or a bug flying by. Fast forward to 2019 when my great-grandmother passed away. He told me about this. Recently, he had captured something or someone on the security cameras going up the hill, and he wanted me to see the video knowing that I was, and I quote, big into computers and video games. I asked him beforehand if he recognized the figure in any way as any kind of animal, and he said no. That if he had to compare it to something most people know, it was a combination of a male elk and a massive wolf. But it did something very odd. It stood on its hind legs at some point in the video. Interested, being a teenager with a bit of an interest in cryptids, I agreed to watch the video. I was not at all prepared for what I would see. As he pulled up the video on his computer, I saw that the timestamp for it was around 2:30 in the morning. The hill pitch black, save for a single lamppost lighting the top of the hill in that eerie black and white security camera way, the screen glitching every so often. It must have taken no more than 10 seconds before the creature crawled into the light on all fours, a good distance from the camera. Unfortunately, due to the distance, we couldn't make out precise details of the creature, but it was more than enough detail to scare the crap out of me. As it crawled further into the light, it turned its head towards the camera, which was located behind it, as if the thing knew where it was at all times. Once its head turned, the pair of massive antlers, like you would see on an elk, were revealed, slightly glowing in the moonlight. Its eye, at least the one we could see on the camera, was bright with a white glow, something you could see from half a mile away. It opened its mouth like it would yawn, only for the top jaw to peel backward more than it should have. Almost like it was a hood, and the thing stood up, like a human. Looking around at the cars and damaged metal which littered the mountain, its eyes landed back on the camera, getting back down on all fours like nothing out of the ordinary had occurred, and it walked out of the light, towards the other side of the hill from Jesse's house and repair shop. I was speechless. My uncle looked up at me, clearly still trying to get over what he had caught on camera. He had served in Vietnam, the Gulf War, and the beginning of Afghanistan. He had seen some messed up stuff and had a severe case of post-traumatic stress disorder. But that was something he had never seen before, and the fact that I saw it proved that it wasn't just his PTSD acting up. Something was on that mountain that no one could explain, and it horrified most of the family. Me, my uncle, both my cousins, my mother, and my grandmother. However, that horror soon turned into a morbid curiosity, which I fear almost got me killed. Skip forward a few more years. Everything had been calm with a few minor scares. The lights at the top of the hill were still there almost every night, while not triggering the cameras. Sounds were heard at night, like the mix of a wolf's howl and a female screech, and that creature only appeared one more time on the cameras. Around July of 2021, I was sent up the hill in the evening around 7:30 p.m. to bring some pieces down from at least 5 cars for the restoration of a 1968 Ford Mustang, which had been Jesse's passion project since 2007, with one of the cars being particularly far up the road, on the other side of the hill, deep in the hollow. I got in Jesse's old Dodge and began the drive, collecting the materials as I climbed the hill and began to go back down the other side. Up until that point, everything had gone smoothly. Just a few days prior, a horrific thunderstorm had swept through the hollow, causing the creek at the bottom of the valley to flood severely, turning the usually dry valley into a raging river. However, we had not checked the damage ourselves up until this point. Once I reached the spot the car was supposed to be, I was shocked to see the vehicle stuck in the creek roughly 100 feet away, thankfully half on dry land. I got out of the truck slowly and checked my watch. 9 p.m. The sun was setting over the hollow, blocked by the tall mountains all around me. Then, it all went silent. Noticing the eerie silence, I immediately felt uneasy as I walked towards the wrecked vehicle, saying to myself, all I need to do is get the part and leave. That's all. Nothing more, nothing less. Thankfully, I had thought to leave the Dodge's lights on to light up where I would be working, 2 bright beams of yellow light shining along the gravel bank alongside the creek. However, anything outside of the beams was almost pitch black now. I made it to the wreck while only getting my shoes and the bottom of my jeans wet, and began working at the part in the silence. With my back towards the creek, I heard a splash on the other side of the water, immediately going for the pistol that I had placed on the top of the car. Jesse had ordered anyone going up the hill to arm themselves against wildlife. Really, we all knew what it was for. That thing. We had taken to calling it a skinwalker, even though we didn't think it really was. Truth was, we didn't know anything about it besides the fact that we decided that it might be connected to Indian folklore. At least, that's what made the most sense to us at the time. Slowly, I turned towards where the sound came from, holding my pistol close to my side, and I saw nothing. But I could still hear something in the creek, wading through the water. I shouted out to it, my voice trembling but confident. "Who's there? I have a weapon." Honestly, looking back on it, I could have worded it much better in case whatever was in the creek was human, but my mind at the time wasn't thinking about it being a human. My mind went straight to that skinwalker. Images of its misfigured form on the videos flashed through my mind, causing me to clench the pistol's grip harder. As I watched where the sounds were coming from, the thing reached the other side of my truck, shrouded in darkness still. I checked the time once more, 9:30 p.m. I had been watching this thing for at most 30 minutes, and all it was doing was moving, stalking me like its prey. Then, my truck shook like something was pushing against the other side of it. Whatever it was very strong. Then I saw those bright yellow lights, the ones from the top of the hill, staring right into my soul from the other side of the truck. Then they rose higher and higher of the truck's cab, and those antlers glistened in the moonlight, just like an elk's, just like the creature's. It was here, staring at me from the shadows. The truck shook once more as the thing walked on 2 legs around the bed of the truck, getting back down on 4 legs, The sickening snap of bones and a sound I can only describe as rubbing two raw pieces of meat together echoed through the hollow, the thing's human-like arms turning into wolf or coyote-like forelimbs. All while this occurred, it never took its eyes off me, walking towards the lights until it entered the headlights, its forelegs first, those long, spindly limbs having no right being on a being that size. They were covered in patchy, elk-like fur, drenched in a sweat-like liquid. The face followed, looking like a wolf's skull. But that's all it was, a skull, with only the top jaw covered in deer-like skin, which hung on like a cloth instead of actual skin. The head was followed by its long back, skin wrapped tightly against the ribs and spinal cord. The creature looked like it hadn't eaten for decades, long strands of drool dripping from its lower skull-like jaw, even going through it. Staring into its eyes, I was paralyzed with fear. I almost missed the video at that moment. It was easier to look at than the thing in person. It couldn't stare into your soul through a video, it couldn't attack you in the video, it couldn't even stalk you in the video. But here in the hollow, it could stare into your soul, it could attack you, it could stalk you, and it could most definitely kill you. And out here, no one would know until it was too late. Then the creature stood on its hind legs once again, that sickening snapping and squishing sound coming back. As it reached almost 8 feet tall, the arms and legs changing back to a more human-like form. It raised its head toward the sky, that cloth-like skin on the top jaw peeling back, the lower jaw hanging low. But as it raised its head, that paralyzing stare let go of me, and I drew my pistol as quickly as I could, aiming at it and firing a round into its lower jaw, knocking it off balance. Unfortunately, those of you who have fired a gun know that it can also send a ringing sensation into your ear for a good few seconds afterward, a few seconds I would never wish on anyone. The creature stared back down at me, mouth wide open, revealing a face inside. A decayed face, a dead face, a human face. The skinwalker, or whatever it was, quickly shot back down to all fours, the human jaw screeching at me, a sound that broke through the ringing in my ears and caused me to fall back. I looked up just in time to see the thing scamper away into the forest on the other side of the creek, screeching all the way. Quickly, I managed to get back into my truck and speed up to the top of the mountain and all the way down the other side. Once I got to the house, I ran inside, trying to get someone, but everyone was asleep by this point. I checked the clock one last time, 9:55 p.m. I had watched that thing for almost an entire hour, an hour I would never get back. The very next morning, I told everyone once the shop opened, and my cousins went down into the hollow and found footprints, or I should say hoof prints, all along the bank of the creek, leading into our neighbor's property. The prints were too big to be any animal, almost twice the size of an elk's print. Since that attack, the far side of the hill has been closed off with a barbed fence, keeping anyone from crossing into the hollow. We still use the hill to place wrecked cars, but only up to the peak. Word never got out of the county about the creature's attack, so this will be the first time it's been mentioned anywhere outside of it. That very same July, I quit my job at Jesse's repair shop, and I live hundreds of miles away from that thing. However, something followed me after the attack and haunts me to this very day. No physical attacks, only mental. I went to therapy, and that helps, but it hasn't left me or my home, no matter where I move. The sight of that thing's face and body will never leave me either, still horrifying me to this day.